Well, the cooking has concluded. We were on a hot streak for a second there, and for the record, I'm not upset that they updated the game, and there are a lot of people that were upset about something about Red Hot Chili Pepper AU, which I'll be talking about when I actually get to talking about that stand. I am not one of those people. That being said, the two new stands that were added in the most recent YBA update are questionable to say the least, mid to say the worst, and the changes alongside them didn't really amount to a whole lot, so we're gonna talk about it. First, before I talk about the stands, let's talk about the other thing in the update that was kind of major, and that is, of course, the changes to time stop. Yet another band-aid was applied that feels like it basically doesn't do anything. So you can run in stop time now, which is nice. The global time stop cooldown was reduced to 8 seconds, which is also nice, and the time stop range was reduced, which, again, a good change. None of these things you're going to immediately notice, but generally speaking, they're good. The most important thing, of course, is that they finally made it so that way the time stop animations actually match the ability, and so if you hit them while they're in the windup, it actually cancels the move. You're welcome for that one. But aside from that, the changes to things like time stop resistance and the way that the time stop upgrades work, well, this ain't it. So now the way it works is that every single upgrade that you get for time stop mastery adds 1 second to your stop time and 0.5 seconds to your time stop movement. This means that if you're just grabbing the default time stop upgrade, it's not going to be as potent as it was before. That being said, when it comes to actually putting this in practice against stands that don't have time stop resistance, the difference that was made was, well, it was basically nothing. It doesn't take very long for someone to chip away a shitload of your health when you're completely stuck in place. So whether it's 3 seconds or 9 seconds, the damage for the most part remains the same. And when it comes to time stop resistance, the problem with time stop resistance has always been the fact that during that time stop resistance time, if you know how much time you have, which you should if you're playing a time stop resistant stand, you can jump or use some sort of movement ability right before you get frozen to put yourself far in the air where it's significantly harder to hit you and take borderline 0, if not actually 0 damage. And nothing changed here changes that. So the gap between TS resist stands and TS stands versus time stop has not changed whatsoever. And that's like the whole problem. Not only that, but some genius decided to make it so that Shadow of the World should be able to walk through the entirety of any other Shadow of the World's time stop now. Because reasons, I don't know. We just decided that that stand should be able to walk through the entire TS just like all the other ones. You know, instead of maybe all the other ones not being able to walk through the entire Shadow of the World time stop, nah, I guess not. It's just, it hurts my brain. I don't understand it. Not only that, but the increase in windup for Shadow of the World's time stop does basically nothing. I didn't even notice it at first, and when I did start to notice it, again, it does nothing. It's so fast, it doesn't matter, and if you don't have TS resist, you're basically never going to see this coming, and if you do see it coming, most stands don't have any options to deal with it anyway, so you're just screwed. Overall, like I said, the time stop changes don't change a whole lot, and so it makes me sort of question why they even bothered in the first place, considering it feels like a non-functional band-aid to the problem. I mean, I guess some stands don't have 9-second time stops anymore, so that's good, but like, that never should have even gotten in to begin with, so whatever. Anyways, let's talk about the new stands, shall we? First on the docket, weather report. There have been reports upon reports upon reports. What were they thinking? Weather report's broken. This stand's so good, it's gonna ruin the game. Blah, 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 blah. Idiots, I tell you, idiots. There is borderline nothing good about this stand. It is mid at best, and nobody is going to be using it in like a week's time. Okay, maybe a few people will be using it because they actually like Weather Report, you know, the stand from the anime or the manga, but people who actually want something fun to use, this ain't it. So why does everyone think it's broken? Well, that's pretty simple. If you get a block break or parry, the person dies. Oh yeah, because when we talked about GER, we talked about how much fun it is to have a stand where if you get a singular opening, the person dies, and if you don't get that singular opening, then it's miserable to play. Well, here you go again, except for this time around, the way you get that opening, unlike GER, is exclusively with a block break or parry. And if you don't get one of those, you're gonna be doing, say it with me now, absolutely fucking nothing, because outside of this one stupid combo, well, just look what happens when you don't get it. Yeah, you run in circles pushing buttons that don't work because none of your buttons are good outside of a block break. So you better hope that the enemy's an idiot, because if they're not, you're not doing a whole lot. And so it's this balancing conundrum where it's like, how the hell did you guys greenlight a stand where if you get a block break, the opponent instantly loses, and if you don't get a block break, then nobody has fun and you get a circle running match for like 20 minutes? I don't understand. But let's talk about the actual moves, shall we? So that way you get a better understanding of the problems with this stand. So probably the most inoffensive move is the tornado. This move is copy-pasted from Pluck pretty much 1-for-1, and the way it works is it's an uncancelable, blockable projectile that barely has any stun. In fact, I don't think it has any, and it does, I believe, 25 damage, 20 damage, something like that. So decent damage for a hyper armor projectile. It's one of those things where it sort of doesn't make sense as a projectile, because if you use it as a normal projectile, you'll never hit anybody because they'll block it every time. So you use it up close and hope they don't block it. Every once in a while you get damage. It's not a good move. It's not a horrible move. It's just okay. And outside of that, well, this is where things start to get questionable. Hazardous Forecast is an incredibly good combo extender, or at least it probably would be if you could turn it around. This might be a hot take, I'm not sure, but I cannot stand the YBA moves that you can't turn the hitbox of. I think it's so stupid. And if you ever have to make it so you literally can't move your character in order to balance a move, you failed balancing the move. That being said, this move doesn't make any goddamn sense to work this way because it doesn't have a massive hitbox. But regardless, if you use it, you can't turn it around. You can't turn your character whatsoever. And considering the fact that it's a cancelable move, so if somebody's, say, mashing on you with M1s, you know, that thing that everybody does because this is YBA, which is an M1-based game, yeah, you'd think, okay, I'm gonna use the move before they run in and then point it at them if you predict their approach. But that's not an option because you can't turn the move around. Why can't you turn the move around? I don't get it. I really don't get it. It's like they were just going through a checklist and they were like, you know, we haven't used this mechanic on a shitty move in a while, so let's put it here. Now, if you do manage to land Hazardous Forecast, then it combo extends into borderline every move in the entire game. So that's pretty cool, and it also does a good amount of damage. It's just too bad that you can't turn the damn thing. Yet another reason why it's basically only helpful if you get a block break or a parry, because at least then you can actually hit the person with it. Frog Rain is the most backwards move on the entire kit, and it's the reason that the stand is quote-unquote broken, and also the reason that the stand is omega lame. At max upgrade, this move lasts forever and does a shitload of damage. And the reason that all of these quote-unquote infinite combos are coming out is because if you get a block break, you can just throw Frog Rain down and then start chucking out combo extenders, and then a barrage at the end. And because the barrage, for whatever reason, doesn't block out the damage like it does for other attacks, well, you're just sort of sitting there eating all of the Frog Rain damage. But outside of getting a block break, Frog Rain is absolutely worthless. It serves practically zero purpose aside from stalling. It reminds me of Hierophant Green Barrier. You throw it down and you stand inside of it and pose because the enemy can't go near you. Yeah, that's real fun. What a great mechanic, guys. Frog Rain is further cucked by the fact that some genius thought it would be a good idea to make it so that way you can counter the move. I know who that genius is. Hi, Paragon. Terrible idea, by the way. That means that if you use this move at any point outside of a block break or a parry, which realistically you shouldn't even really be doing anyway, against the stand that has a counter, they're just going to press the counter and you're fucked. Yeah, that's fantastic. Let's put this giant active hitbox that lasts forever that you can counter at any point on the field. Wonderful. How does that even make sense? Frogs are raining from the sky. Why can you counter that with something like Vampire Counter? Next move, Atmospheric Manipulation, or as I like to call it, the move where everyone just holds S and leaves until it goes away. So these types of moves always have this problem, and in fairness, they tried to make it so that way, you know, this isn't as much of a problem. It just didn't work at all. But we'll talk about that in a second. What does this move do? Well, at default, when it's activated, if you block an attack, it'll send some of that damage back to the attacker. In my opinion, it should be 1-to-1 the damage back to the attacker, but that's not how it works. It might actually be halfway decent if that was the case. even though people can just, hold away. You can upgrade it to do 2 things, one of which is to give you an extra 15 physical defense while it's active. This would be helpful if enemies engaged with you while it's active, but they don't. The other thing is what they tried to do to make it so that way you wouldn't run away while it's active, it just doesn't work. And that is to make it so that way the enemy's sprint speed is reduced while you're near them. The problem is that if they have any type of movement ability whatsoever, they just use that to get outside of the range of this, and then it doesn't do anything. Never mind the fact that you have to spend a bunch of points in order to do this. In total, if you wanted to upgrade this to the maximum, you would need to spend 12 skill points, and an enemy could just not engage with you, meaning all of those 12 skill points are gone. I came to the conclusion that these upgrades just aren't worth it. They're so expensive, and considering people could just hold away, what the hell is even the point? Ice Spikes is really the only well-rounded move that the stand has, but it's also just a clone of White Album's ice attack move that I can't remember the name of, so, it's good. So, I guess I can't complain too much. Does decent damage, cancelable true block break, you can get an upgrade that gives bleed. It's just good. I don't have any problems with it. And then the final move on the kit is Heavy Weather, the big ultimate win button move. This move, at default, will make it so that way the enemy loses their legs as well as reducing their physical defense by 20. So in other words, they take more damage and it makes it harder for them to run away. Now, Heavy Weather is really good because you can start the wind-up right before someone stands up, and because it has such a large hitbox, you can hit them pretty much the second they stand up, meaning it effectively confirms off of ragdolls. People have cited this as meaning that Heavy Weather is broken because you can use it on ragdolls. But I have to pose the question to you, is it really so good that you should not be able to do this? Because if you couldn't, well, I can't really see you being able to use this move that often. The range is very large, but it's not as large as most of the other win buttons in the game. And that's the thing I think a lot of people are not considering. They're looking at all of these buttons that Weather Report has and going, look, broken, but not considering the buttons that other stands have. Never mind the fact that if you're using a counter stand, if you do get ragdolled the second you stand up and they're trying to use this, you can counter Heavy Weather, which that's a bit of a weird option, again, when it comes to countering moves that probably shouldn't be counterable, but you can. Either way, if you totally max this thing out, which you shouldn't because, again, it's stupidly expensive, it makes it so that way your enemy's basic combat attack speed, so their M1s, is reduced, and it also makes them take even more damage. This is a great upgrade if it didn't cost 8 bajillion points. And nothing about this upgrade is better than someone just pushing time stop. But really, I think you're starting to get the idea. And I know there's going to be people that think I'm wrong. Paragon still thinks I'm wrong. That's fine. He's allowed to think I'm wrong. But in my opinion, this is a horribly designed stand that focuses entirely on getting hard punishes. And if it doesn't get them, it does, well, borderline nothing. But oh boy, if you think Weather Report is bad, good God. Let's bring up Chili Pepper's alternate universe. This might be a hot take, I'm not sure, but I think this is the worst stand that has ever been added to YBA. Pre-buff Shadow the World was pretty bad, especially considering that you just weren't allowed to M1, but good God, Chili Pepper's AU fucking sucks. So Chili Pepper's AU is basically a stand that does 0 basic combat damage, barely any ability damage, it's hard to land any of your abilities, and you constantly have to charge a bar that stops you in place completely if you want to use all of your moves at full capacity. Wow, that sounds like a good idea, let's do it! Trying to use this in the 1v1s mode made me want to throw myself out a window. I fought this same Star Platinum the World guy twice in a row, and if I was using anything else, obliterated. No chance. This guy is awful. And I mean, he knows it too, so it's not just me saying this, but because I'm using Chili Pepper AU, oh boy howdy did I get fucking destroyed twice. I won a singular game against a horrendously terrible Purple Haze who got hit by the same block break over and over and over again. And even though I kept block breaking him, it didn't matter because I don't do any damage. Any other stand wins off of like 2 block breaks just off of hard punishes. But this one, oh, not even fucking close. The first and most notable thing to mention is the charging. In my opinion, it shouldn't be here at all. I've told this to Paragon and he basically said, I'm an idiot and it would be broken. So whatever, I don't care. I'm still standing by it. The charge bar shouldn't be here. But if the charge bar is going to be here, there's 2 glaring issues with it. Number 1, the fact that when you go to charge it, it needs to ramp up. This is so ungodly stupid, and I don't know why it's here or on the normal Red Hot Chili Peppers. Basically, when you start charging your bar, the longer you charge it, the faster it ramps up and the faster you charge. But you gotta understand that in context, people don't want you to be charging this. So if you start charging it, they're just going to run at you, and then you can't charge. So your chances to charge are very limited. And if you were using something like Haman, you'd just be able to charge it whenever you needed to, and just charging every once in a while is enough to keep it upkept. But here, you can't do that, because if you just tap the button for a little bit, it barely charges at all. The other major problem with the charging? The fact that your dashes use it. Why? Why? So for those who don't know how the charge bar works because you weren't stupid enough to get this, congratulations for not being stupid enough to get this. The way it works is that certain moves in your kit can be buffed by using up some of your electric charge. Now granted, you had to have bought the upgrades in order to use those moves, so if you don't have the upgrade unlocked and you use the move, even if you have sufficient charge, it won't use the charge. At least thank God for that. But generally speaking, if you use a move that requires the amount of electric charge that you have, it'll use it and it'll buff the move in a variety of different ways. Now these ways by and large are not really very good and probably not worth the massive hassle that it takes, but we'll get there. The problem is that one of the big selling points about Red Hot Chili Peppers AU is the Godspeed dashes. These are basically sort of Blox Fruit-esque dashes where you can use them in the air to shoot yourself upwards or forwards. They're really, really fun to use. And it's the only thing that makes this stand even remotely decent, although it's not decent. So let me rephrase that. It's the only thing that makes this fun, even though it's ass. That being said, some genius thought it would be a grand idea to make it so that way, if you have enough charge, using a dash eats your charge bar. What the fuck? There's no enhanced version of this. Why does it use your bar? This is the most questionable, stupid thing I've ever seen in this game, and I've seen a lot. Here's this move that you would realistically use to try to chase after people, if they're running away. Oh, except for the fact that if you do that, then you need to stop completely dead in place in order to charge if you want to be able to use any of your moves with any decent capacity. Oh, fantastic. So how exactly are you supposed to chase somebody when you actually get close to them and you've run out of charge? It just encourages people to run away so you burn all your charge. It doesn't make any sense. There's no way around it. It's just fucking stupid. Now, I've already explained some of the issues with charge, but in order to talk about the other ones, we need to actually take a look at the moves on Red Hot Chili Pepper AU aside from charging and the dashes, which we've talked about. The most interesting move on here is the lightning elbow move, which in theory should be really good, but in practice sucks major ass, and here's why. Number 1, this is a blockable move. It's a blockable dashing move with a ton of startup, which means that any decent player is going to block it 10 times out of 10. So realistically, if you're fighting a good player, this is off the table, even though it's basically one of your only good moves. Not off to a great start, but let's say the opponent is dog shit, okay? So they get hit by lightning elbow. If you don't have any charge, it deals 20 damage, and that's it. It's a ragdoll, just a wrap. Okay, whatever. The non-charged moves are kind of supposed to not be great. So what happens if you have the charge? Well, this makes it so when you ragdoll the person, they have a less ragdoll time, which means they stand up and they'll still be stunned, allowing you to get some sort of follow-up. And the thing is, while the stun isn't massive when they stand up, you can start a move while they're standing up, effectively making it so you can confirm basically any move. The problem is twofold. Number 1, the way that ragdoll works in YBA. I could try to explain this, but it would probably take a long time, so I'm gonna try my best to give you the Cliff Notes version. Because there's client-server desync on the way some of these ragdoll things are handled, basically, if you hit somebody, the ragdoll is client-side. And so what you see is not necessarily what's happening on the server. And so when the ragdoll is over and the client and the server sync up, you can see issues where somebody might just teleport to very clearly where they were not a second ago. Now obviously this is a problem because if you're going for some sort of combo extender and the person just isn't where you think they are and you whiff, that feels like shit. This happens all the time. So that's already bad enough. But the other problem is that, number one, there's barely any stun at the end of this attack, like I said, and number two, the fact that the opponent still gets ragdoll resistance when they stand up. Which means that, in theory, you can go to use a move, and while they're standing up, if you don't time it perfectly 100% correct, it'll just pass right through them. Now, I already know there are people that are going to be like, oh my god, skill issue, Eclipse, just time your attacks right. But if this window is so unbelievably small to where I screw it up over and over and over again, even after using this stand for multiple hours, we've got a problem. Because other stands don't have this problem. Their combo extenders don't have these tiny little minuscule ranges where you can start getting other moves off. Now, all right, let's say everything works out fantastically. You manage to get your combo extender. Well, now what? If you're using boxing, for example, the best case scenario is on screen right now. You can get him with an eye gouge and then the laser, and then I guess you can fish for a pinky/block break or a hit, and then that's it. The amount of damage here is just not impressive at all. And considering the setup for this is landing an incredibly easy to block move and then hoping to God it doesn't glitch out and then perfectly timing all of this stuff, I just have to question, well, what the fuck were they thinking? The rest of the moves, I mean, they're all just kind of bad. Thunderbolt is a projectile that shoots out directly in front of you. It does 20 damage, stuns for a very short amount of time, incredibly easy to block. You can cancel the move. It's awful. Pinky Slash. You all know what this move is. It's a Red Hot Chili Pepper block-breaking cancelable move that has 800 years of startup, does 20 damage if not charged, and if you do have charge, it applies a bit of bleed, which is all right, but again, charging itself, rough. And then finally, Lightning Drop is one of those moves that I have to scratch my head on, especially when it comes to the charge factor. Basically, if you use this move and you're airborne, it'll shoot you down and hit people along with ragdolling them. The damage on it appears to be based on the height that you drop from, and that's pretty cool. It can do up to 30 damage if you're at your max height. And not only that, the upgrade that you can get for charge makes it so if you have charge, this will go through block. Now, the problem is that if you use your dashes to get some distance in the air in order to do it, you use all your charge and then it can't go through block. Oh wow, good job, guys. Apparently it can go through Ragdoll too, so I suppose you could use it that way, but that's not saving the stand, not by a long shot. And really, I think the kicker here is the fact that this stand, on top of all of this shit, is expensive as fuck. If you actually want to get all of these moves unlocked and have all of their upgrades, it's not reasonable that you're going to be able to do that and have a decent skill tree in anything else. Like, maybe this is a hot take, not sure if it is, but if you're gonna have a stand that's kind of mediocre or lesser played, at the very least, make it very inexpensive so that way people can get all of the upgrades and have fun with them. In its current state, if I could have maxed out the entire tree, it wouldn't have made a difference, so it would have been at least a consolation, but no such luck. Now, the one elephant in the room that you probably noticed that I haven't discussed about is the fact that Red Hot Chili Pepper AU is shamelessly a copy and pasted mod spec onto a stand. And there were a lot of people that were mad about this. There were a lot of people, even in my group of friends, who were like, ha 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 ha, they're so lazy, they just put in a mod spec and called it a stand. And I'm sorry, but are you guys stupid? No, seriously, I've been complaining about mod specs for years. So many other people have been complaining about mod specs for years. And the consensus is always, why are they putting so much dev time into stuff that we never get to use? And then they take the stuff that we never get to use and they put it on a stand and they're like, here you go, here's this thing that you never got to use that we put a bunch of time into, and then we flip the coin on its head and it's, wah, they're so lazy, they just put out a thing that we never got to use. I got nothing on this. If you think this is a problem, I'm sorry, but I have nothing to say to you. Either way, like I said, this stand is awful, beyond awful. Absolutely nobody is going to be using this. And honestly, I bet you barely anybody would have been using this even if it came out and it was good. When you put in a stand that's niche or out there or random, you need to make it, fun, so that way people that otherwise would just go herder the world, herder star platinum might actually think twice about using it. But who the hell's gonna do that when it sucks ass? Overall, I think the footage speaks for itself. you can use this and win and win and win and win and win, and the enemy hits you 4 times and you lose because they do more damage at base, they have better moves, and most stands have a win button, and this one just doesn't have one of those. So it has nothing going for it, and it's just bad. And that's where we get to the end of the video. These 2 stands are in rough shape, and I want to make it clear that I'm recording this voiceover on Saturday. So it's a day after the updates come out, and there's a non-zero chance that they'll have changed some stuff by Monday when this will come out. That being said, I want to make it anyway at this point, while all of this stuff is happening, so that way it's chronicled in history that this happened. Because this is awful, and I feel like a crazy person when I've got people like Paragon telling me the stands are not that bad and they're fine. They're anything but fine. These are awful and just poorly designed. Anyways, I'm wrapping up here. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, subscribe, do all that kind of stuff. If you didn't, you can go yell at me in the comments and tell me why, after using Red Hot Chili Pepper AU for 6,000 hours, it's actually the best stand in the game, and how I'm an idiot and whatever, and you know, all that kind of crap. Regardless, have a wonderful day night wherever you are, and I'll see you guys next time.